Why is it that every time a major ceasefire is declared in Gaza, the world's attention seems to converge on this small, embattled strip of land? What is it about these moments of fragile peace that draws not only diplomats and aid workers, but also high-profile business figures, politicians, and international observers? Is it the hope for a new beginning, the urgency of humanitarian need, or the lure of opportunity in the aftermath of destruction? For decades, Gaza has been a focal point of conflict and tragedy, but also of resilience and the persistent search for solutions. Each ceasefire, no matter how tenuous, becomes a magnet for those who believe they can make a difference, or perhaps, those who see a chance to shape the future in their own image. The world watches, holding its breath as the dust settles and the guns fall silent, wondering who will step forward next and what their presence will mean for the people of Gaza. This week, the spotlight falls on Steve Witkoff, a name more often associated with luxury skyscrapers and high-stakes real estate deals in New York and Miami than with the war-scarred streets of Gaza. Witkoff, a billionaire developer with a reputation for bold moves and calculated risks, has arrived in Gaza at a time when the city is still reeling from the latest round of violence. His presence here is both unexpected and, for many, deeply symbolic. What brings a figure like Witkoff to a place like this, at a moment like this? Is it philanthropy, business, diplomacy, or something else entirely? As he steps onto Gaza's battered soil, questions swirl about his intentions, his alliances, and the impact his visit might have on the delicate balance of power and hope in the region. The stakes could hardly be higher as Witkoff embarks on his tour of a city perched on the edge of uncertainty. On October 11th, in a movie that caught many by surprise, the real estate mogul was seen visiting an Israeli military base inside Gaza, accompanied by a delegation of U.S. officials and diplomats. The visit was shrouded in secrecy, with few details released to the public, but its significance was not lost on observers. For some, it signaled a new phase in the international response to Gaza's crisis, one in which private capital and political influence might play as large a role as humanitarian aid and diplomatic negotiations. For others, it raised alarms about the potential for outside interests to shape the future of Gaza in ways that may not align with the needs or wishes of its people. As Witkoff and his entourage moved through the heavily guarded compound, the world's media speculated about the deals being discussed behind closed doors, and the possible consequences for a region already fraught with tension and mistrust. So, what exactly is Steve Witkoff's mission in Gaza? According to sources close to the negotiations, his visit centers on discreet, high-level talks about the future of post-war reconstruction and the potential for large-scale investment in the region. These discussions are taking place at a critical juncture, just as Hamas police have resumed their patrols in the city, a clear signal that the group is reasserting its authority after the chaos of recent months. The return of Hamas security forces to the streets is both a reassurance and a warning. While order is being restored, the underlying power dynamics remain as complex and volatile as ever. Witkoff's presence at the table suggests that the reconstruction of Gaza may not be left solely to governments and aid organizations, but could also involve significant input and capital from private investors with their own interests and agendas. The stakes are enormous, not just for the physical rebuilding of homes and infrastructure, but for the political and economic future of Gaza itself. The ceasefire for now is holding, but the scars of war are everywhere. Nearly 50 hostages remain unaccounted for, their fates a source of anguish and uncertainty for families on both sides of the conflict. Meanwhile, thousands of displaced families are making their way back to what's left of their homes, only to find shattered walls, collapsed roofs, and the remnants of lives interrupted by violence. The humanitarian crisis is acute. Water, electricity, and medical supplies are in short supply, and the psychological toll of the conflict is evident in the faces of children and adults alike. Aid organizations are working around the clock to provide relief, but the scale of the destruction is overwhelming. For many, the promise of reconstruction is a distant hope, overshadowed by the immediate challenges of survival and the ever-present fear that the fragile peace could collapse at any moment. In this context, the arrival of foreign investors and business leaders is met with a mixture of hope, skepticism, and outright suspicion. Witkoff's visit has not gone unnoticed. or unchallenged. Across Gaza, and in international circles, his presence has sparked a fierce debate about the risks and rewards of private investment in a post-conflict zone. Critics warn of what they call disaster capitalism, the phenomenon in which crises and catastrophes are exploited for profit, often at the expense of the most vulnerable. They point to examples from around the world where reconstruction efforts have been hijacked by powerful interests, leading to gentrification, displacement, and the deepening of social and economic divides. In Gaza, where trust in outside actors is already low, the fear is that foreign investors may prioritize lucrative contracts and quick returns over the long-term needs of the local population. Protests have erupted in several neighborhoods, with demonstrators demanding transparency, accountability, and a greater role for Palestinian voices in shaping the future of their own communities. The controversy has spilled over into the media, with commentators and analysts weighing in on the potential dangers of allowing private capital to dictate the terms of Gaza's recovery. The central question now is whether private investors like Steve Witkoff will be a force for good in Gaza's reconstruction, or whether their involvement will simply reinforce old divisions and create new ones. On one hand, the scale of the destruction is such that government aid and international donations alone may not be enough to rebuild the city and restore basic services. Private capital could provide the resources and expertise needed to jumpstart economic recovery, create jobs, and lay the foundations for a more stable and prosperous future. On the other hand, the risk is that investment will flow only to projects that promise high returns, leaving the most vulnerable communities behind and exacerbating existing inequalities. The challenge is to find a balance between the urgent need for reconstruction and the imperative to ensure that the process is fair, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of all Gazans. As negotiations continue, the people of Gaza watch closely, hoping that this time, the promises of peace and prosperity will not be broken. In the end, the future of Gaza remains uncertain. The decisions made in the coming weeks and months by local leaders, international diplomats, and private investors alike will shape the destiny of millions. Will this ceasefire mark the beginning of a genuine recovery, or will it be just another pause in an endless cycle of violence and rebuilding? Only time will tell whether the involvement of figures like Steve Witkoff will help heal the wounds of war, or deepen the divides that have kept Gaza trapped in conflict for so long. For now, the world watches and waits, hoping that this fragile moment of peace will be the foundation for something better.